Hi, my name is Ari Beser. I'm a digital storyteller, photographer, producer, author, located here in New York City. My grandfather, Jacob Beser, was the only man, well, I guess, in the world to be on both of the airplanes that carried the atomic bombs. He was involved in the Manhattan Project. He helped build the fuse of the bomb. And before then, I guess a bomb had never detonated in the middle of the air. My first introduction to ICANN was through two other partner organizations, Peaceboat and Hibakushas Stories. Peaceboat I was introduced to through the family of Sadako Sasaki. She folded 1,000 paper cranes, and she became a symbol of peace and of the children killed by the atomic bomb. Her family thought it was important to get us together, the grandson of President Truman and myself, the grandson of Jacob Beser. I was a kid, so I genuinely believed that it was very important that Clifton was there, and I understand that the legacy that I carried, but I didn't think I had the mind to do it, and I knew that I needed to learn more. So by getting involved with Peaceboat and by getting involved with Hibakusha Stories, the people in charge, like Kathleen Sullivan and Akira Kawasaki, knew I needed that education. So they pulled me in, they gave me opportunities to meet survivors, to learn, and to and on my own accord, I realized that I had a purpose here, that I had a camera and a desire to tell stories, and stories, so many stories in front of me, world-changing stories, stories that have impact, and stories that kept me up at night because they were real. And this is a horrific thing. It's unimaginable, but it happened. It happened to these people, and 80,000 people were killed, but I believe 350,000 people survived, if not a more. And we talk about the death a lot, but I don't know if we've talked enough about the trauma of living through those bombs and what that did to people, what that's done to a generation, and what we can do from there. The treaty happened. Then treaty negotiations happened, and they needed storytellers, they needed photographers. And I said, well, okay, I'll go. I mean, that's a big deal. And I mean, they got the UN to sign on to this treaty. Sure, I'll go. And I didn't think it could happen. And then I'm like, but that's it. I'm done after this. And then, and then the treaty passed. And I was like, wait, something's happening. Something's different about this. I don't know if I should walk away. In October, it was announced that we won the Nobel Peace Prize. I was like, we? What do you mean we? Who's we? And it was the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. Everyone in the campaign was awarded. We were all a member of this laureate. And it was a game changer, because now we can talk about this in bigger spaces. Now we can get those seats at the table and have these discussions with the people that make this happen. Each individual person, mostly in those photographs, are a survivor. One person in those photographs is the child of a survivor who's made it his life's mission. He repairs pianos that were destroyed by the atomic bomb. That same piano that you see him standing in front of was played by John Legend at the Nobel Peace Prize concert, with Zara Larsson by his side as they sang God Only Knows. It's very powerful what Yagawa-san does, because he is very adamant about the message itself spreading as well, but he spreads it through music, and he spreads it through the instruments that used to play melodies so that they may play melodies again after they were destroyed by the bomb. I took a photograph of Yoshiya Okasan. She's no longer with us. She passed away shortly after that photograph was taken, of malignant melanoma. She was a brilliant person, which was made clear because she could recount every single detail of her 13-year-old self when she was in that situation, because the gifted students were picked to be the job that she had. She was in the shelter that would give the air raid warnings from the other security outposts, then she would release to the broadcasters. And at around 8:15, shortly before that, she had gotten an alert, but there was a plane directly over Hiroshima, and that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have gotten that far. And she was like, okay, where's the notice? I got to get a notice to push out. I got to get a notice. Where's the notice? And by the time she got the notice to push out, the bomb had dropped. And she had only been knocked out for minutes. She remembers waking up and seeing a gaseous material in the air that she claims to have been radiation. And nothing had started catching fire yet, so it was quite soon. She walked outside and she saw a soldier who was burned by the flash, and he said, a new type of bomb was dropped. It's destroyed the whole city. So she runs back inside the bunker, and she gets to a call box. Here's someone on the other end, and it's the Fukuyama lookout station, and she said, Hiroshima's been destroyed. What? They said, that's not, what? And yeah, one plane dropped a bomb, a new type of bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed. So that morning, that message was the first word out of Hiroshima, the initial word that the city had been destroyed by a new type of bomb. And that phrasing has been, the new type of bomb was used until it was officially labeled an atomic bomb. And it was hidden, what had happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki by design. I think a lot of people forget that the first prime minister of Japan was Douglas MacArthur, and that he had enacted a press code. I had no idea that when I moved there for the first time that their first prime minister was American, and that they blacklisted anyone who could talk about the reality of what happened. I wonder what world we'd live in today if they weren't embargoed and they could speak about the horrors that they experienced. I think Jodai-san was important because she took me back to where the bomb dropped on her, but her house and her neighborhood was rather far away. So all the houses were still the same. And so she could see the family names on the houses. Like, that's where, like, my friend's grandparents, like, that's where my friend lived. And I guess that's like grandparents now, but they're still there. And so she doesn't like going back there. And she hadn't been back there in 20 years. So when we walked through, it was really emotional. And she just, I was going to wait till we got back when we got to the location itself. But she started talking about every single thing, and she was getting her memory back, and it was kind of exciting for her, but also really dreadful. For about a minute, she was staring up at the sky at the end, just like staring up. And I was looking at her, and I was like, is she having a moment? Should I let her have this moment? And then I realized that my camera was silent shutter. And so I realized that I needed to take that picture, and I'm really glad I did, because I think that it was a really powerful image. And you can really see her remembering. You can see her looking for the plane. With Keiko Ogura, the woman standing in front of the steps. Those were the steps in front of her house where she was when the bomb was dropped, and she survived. Her father had a premonition that morning, I guess related to the air raid alerts that had been attacked the night before, and so they were concerned, and he goes, I don't want you going to school today. So she didn't go to school. And of course, history unfolds, and the bomb was dropped that morning. So her father was home. The next morning, he was busy cremating bodies in the park, and she went up to the temple to see the city. Her brother was at Hiroshima Station, and he returned and told them that this whole city was destroyed when her mother believed it was just a neighborhood, because she couldn't understand, like, why, first of all, someone would attack the rural community, and also didn't understand what was going on, and then was terrified to learn that her son was in the blast as well, but it was somewhere on the opposite side of the city. So she was curious. A little 8-year-old went up to the roof, went up to the hilltop, and she could see all the way to the sea. The whole city was destroyed. And when she went back down, and she passed by somebody, and they erupted into a chorus, crying mizu, crying water. And she ran to a well and filled up a bowl with water, and she gave it to some people. And as soon as she did that, they died. And she ran home, terrified that she had just killed people. Get inside, and then the father says, remember, don't bring anybody any water. And she was lying. She said, I didn't do such a stupid thing. I would have never. And for 30 years, she kept it secret. And for 30 years, she tortured herself. And finally, she told her father on his deathbed. But she calls those her invisible scars, because she wasn't burned by the blast, but she is traumatized. And she downplays her experience because of her distance from the hypocenter, from her lack of injury, from most of her family still being attacked by the end of the blast, as a survivor tends to do of a blast where everybody lost much But I often think that her story is that much more powerful because of it, because she too was in that blast. And she too carries those scars with her, even if you don't see them. One of the things that a survivor who I didn't photograph says in her speech at the United Nations when they banned nuclear weapons, Setsuko Thurlow, and she said it again when she accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017 on behalf of ICANN. Every single person in that city, every single person that lost their lives was loved by somebody that had a name. We can look at 14,000 nuclear weapons that could destroy the world 250 times over and say that quite quickly. But what does it mean? I want you to look in their eyes, and I want you to think about what that means.